Alright guys, that's Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Rostermania is going down in the CDL right now, but currently restricted to the Challenger side. Kason unveiling his team for the last chance qualifier on the Challenger side to compete with Zoomer's Stallions roster, but Nadeshot reveals that the Los Angeles Thieves team that won this past weekend in Dallas, they are under contract, at least taking him through next season as well. What does that mean for the Rostermania in the off-season? What teams might decide to make moves? Could any of those guys still be gettable if a team came along with enough money? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Firstly, starting here, ranked play, the C9 is gone. We know of course that the new patch is coming into the CDL for the World Championship in Canada. Technically it's in Kitchener, but you know what I'm saying, it sounds a bit better. Anyway, the C9 flashbangs are gone. Obviously the C9 became a bit of an issue in the recent update because, well, the C9 is now very much viable compared to the Jackal given the changes that we have seen there, but of course the pros are still using the Jackal, so they kind of want to keep that, let's just say, consistency between the professional play and the casual competitive play, as it were. That's kind of what we're seeing here. So that was a big change that we saw. There have been some roster drama elsewhere as well, just because Formal and the OpTic Halo team, they've won the first two events, and therefore the other teams are blowing it up. There was actually lots of drama about this yesterday. We had Lucid, we had others hitting some Twitch chats and giving their thoughts on their rivals. I'm not really going to get into much of that detail, but effectively Lucid potentially to FaZe, some of the other guys going to SSG. But it's all going on over there right now, and you know, pretty impressive that Formal managed to form this super team in the off-season. They've won the first two events of the year, and now they've got every other team blowing it up as a result. But we also have Rostermania in the COD side, and mainly because the last chance qualifier is coming up very shortly indeed for the Challengers side. The teams that have got good points on the board for the season, they will qualify for the Challengers World Championship, and then the last chance qualifier will determine the final team to qualify from the various regions. Now, if you come top 3 at Champs, then you secure a spot for the Esports World Cup, and well, presumably if the team that just won the last event in Dallas that already qualified, Vivid, Mack and those guys, Mamba and Craze, the Omit team that won, they are going automatically. So, you know, as long as you're within those guys in that kind of conversation, then you'll be there at the World Cup in Riyadh. Maybe I said Champs, you guys know what I'm talking about. This is the new Stallions team. Symbols and Sruti, they're back at it again, right? I mean, of all the drama the last couple of days or so, Symbols was like, you know what, I'm going to quit, I'm not doing this anymore, do want to play with Sruti. But no, they're going to run it back. Manny's there, and Paul X is coming in as well, the final addition to the roster. So that's the team as it is currently, but you know, we know what Challengers is like. Things could potentially all change, but it's cool to see Paul X back, of course. He had the stint on Rocker. I think in hindsight, Paul X's stock has gone up a little bit just because Kenny came in, and I think honestly Kenny did a fine job. It's just they didn't really win. They kept losing all the game 5s. Kenny turned up towards the end of the season. They didn't make the run in the ends. To be fair, the run, looking back at it now, the run was going to be a really tall task anyway because Boston were already quite a way ahead and OpTic actually turned up at the end of the season. So, you know, I think even in hindsight, it would have been really difficult for Kenny and Rocker to actually make it to Champs. It's not like they missed out by 10 points and therefore, you know, they should have done better in one of those game 5s they had. Should they have done better in some of the game 5s they had? Yes, but they were still a number of series away from actually making it to Champs in the ends. But Paul X, as a result of the fact that the team was not really much better with Kenny, yeah, Paul wasn't great, but at least he was there when the rest of the guys were kind of firing. Maybe Paul's stock has gone up a little bit, and, you know, he's not going to play competitive Warzone. He's going to come back into the CDL potentially. Well, at least for now, he's playing in Challenges. Maybe we get to see him at the World Cup if this team does well. But as a result, it was all going down over the last couple of days. Kason was getting involved and saying, you know what, Zuma, I'm going to run my own COD team as well. Looking for a Challenges COD team. Serious inquiries only. I'm building a team. Screw the Stallions. And this is the roster that he puts together, FC Draco. And, well, it's a pretty nice roster on paper. So we've got this Trakes guy. He is the Argentinian player who's moved over to America and over the last couple of years has started to make some serious waves in the Challenger scene with Neum, with Hamza Frosty, who was actually part of the Falcons briefly this season, not on the starting team, but on their academy. And then Asim, of course, rounding out the roster. So, you know, I think it's a solid team. And it's actually going to be really exciting to see this, and it's great to see this support. I mean, look, I know that Kason said before Challengers probably doesn't make much sense to invest in, but for the storylines, for the Challengers World Championship, why not? He's got a team, Zuma's got a team. you know, maybe Zinni needs to step in with his own team as well. They've got a logo, they've got all sorts going on, and also they have a coach. Now, okay, they don't technically have a coach, but I will just share this moment here. You guys can just about see it on the right-hand side, where Zoom is on the phone with Kaysan, and Kaysan reveals who his new head coach is for the roster. He turns the camera around, and we can see Mr. and Shotzzy on the screen, right? So there you go. Anyway, you guys can just about see who that is. And yeah, he's there with Shotzzy cooking something up for the new roster. So I thought that was pretty funny. He even tweeted it out as well. President and Warlord of SC Draco, here's Shotzzy, right, for the Challengers World Championship. So, I don't know. Excited to see how this one goes. It's been some great storylines in the Challenger side over the last couple of days. But the big storyline I wanted to get into really is Rostermania in the CDL and what that's going to look like. Because over the last few years, I think there's been quite a few seasons where we've said, maybe this season isn't going to be anything crazy in terms of Rostermania, and then something crazy happens. There've been a couple of years where not much has really changed, but most years there are serious changes in the off-season. This season could be different, and, well, potentially that is going to be caused by the LA Thieves. So, Nadeshot was talking about HyDra. I've got a couple of clips to share from that in a couple of seconds, when he's talking about some of the most electric PFVs to watch in the history of COD. Momo Bro gives his perspective on it as well, controversial or not, intrigued to your perspective. But of course, talking about this legendary clip, the 4-piece that's, well, player of the season, right? Absolutely player of the season. And Nadeshot comparing that to his play back in COD Ghost, where he got the famous ace here. Peacock, you've got to let him fly sometimes, as Frizz said on Warhawk Search and Destroy, what a map that was. So, yeah, anyway, Nadeshot's comparing it to each other's playstyles. But the roster itself just won the recent events. They're the favourites going into the World Championship as a result. They look very difficult to beat for anyone that isn't called FaZe, and potentially Heretics as well, as we saw during the tournament. But what does that mean for the future? Because Nadeshot confirms that the contracts they signed with their full roster are indeed new for the most recent season, and therefore extendable, or maybe even just extended through to 2026. Now, I'm not 100% sure what these contracts are, because they used to just do 1+1s, which in this case would still be fine, assuming that all of the team, because Ghosty was there last year, but maybe he signed a new deal in the off-season. Envoy came back, Scrappy and HyDra came in. Presumably, they all signed new deals ahead of the 2025 season. Now, is that a 1+1, as they used to all be 1+1s? In which case, the organisation could simply choose to extend, which maybe is what's happening here. Or it could even be a 2+1, potentially even a 2+0. Not exactly sure what that would look like, but I think those contracts are now possible in the league. But the bottom line is, as Nadeshot says, yeah, we spent the money, we locked them down to contracts that mean that we will be extending them for at least another year. Typically, the way that this sometimes happens, as we've seen over the last few years, let's say Thieves win champs. Quite commonly, FaZe have done this, OpTic have done this. They win champs and they say to their team, yeah, we can't really afford this. If you guys want to stay together as a quartet, we're going to have to pay you less. But I don't know if that works for Thieves anymore, because you've got teams like Falcons, you've got teams potentially like Twisted Minds or Al-Qatsiyah, rumours that another Saudi team is going to want to come in that might spend some money. So I think, you know, it's plausible that Thieves are stuck, and look, there's no issue really being stuck here with the roster that they have, but they may be in a position where they simply have to say, okay, yeah, we'll pay you the same amount for the second year, or maybe that's already in the contract. Bottom line is, as it stands, the Thieves guys are locked in, and even if they bomb out at champs, which I don't think they're going to do, but even if they did, I still don't think they would make changes, because they clearly know what this roster is capable of. I don't really think it's possible to upgrade the team unless someone from FaZe, potentially OpTic, becomes available. But even then, the structure and the chemistry and the composition of Thieves is such that it's difficult to imagine how you make that team better, in my opinion. And therefore, the likelihood is they will stick it out to next year, which is good for Thieves fans, maybe not so good for other teams.
Let's watch something together, gentlemen. Let's goon. Jimbo with the 10 gifted subs. HyDra with the oosh. Oh, shit. Wait, hold on, chat. Eerily similar. Eerily similar.
Nice pickup. There is somebody right behind him. He gets behind enemy lines. Great call! Oh, my goodness! Going for ace. He's got the ace. Oh, and he gets the ace.
Hey, I didn't say it, bro. You know, I didn't say it. It's just kind of how it happened, baby. Crazy how similar me and HyDra really are to each other. You know what I mean? It's wild. How do you rank HyDra in the most talented COD players ever? I think HyDra's moving up the ranks pretty quickly here as like top 5 player all time. I mean, just from talent alone, like if you're just talking about like the eye test, I think he's got one of the most electric POVs to watch out of any player ever. It's hard to say like where he would land on the all-time list just because I still think he has many years to go. I don't want to blow that too far out of proportion, but HyDra's unbelievable, bro. That man HyDra is literally unbelievable. And what's crazy too is that even though his POV is so crazy to watch and he's been playing so well, it's like Scrap was the MVP of the tournament 2 tournaments in a row. You think we'll be able to keep them all for the next offseason? Fantasy, we got every single player on this team locked until the end of the 2026 season. So yes, they will be staying. Don't worry, you're gonna have at least one more year of a lot of dope. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but we got everybody locked in for next year.
It's not down.
So as a result of this, people are suggesting, okay, what is going to happen after the World Cup, right? When teams look to make moves, what's going to happen then? Because Thieves are, I would say, very likely to stick it out together, but which other teams would or should also stick it out? I do not think it's clear-cut at all that more than, I don't know, 2 teams are going to stick it out. Like, if FaZe win champs, then it's, you know, very unlikely they're going to change anything. But you never know, like, what could be going on, especially with other organizations coming in, right? Like, I'm sure the FaZe guys are on a decent salary, for sure. But it's not like it's FaZe Clan, it's Atlanta Esports Ventures. They've not run an event in the last few years. You know, you never know. Like, what if a Saudi team, Falcons even, or maybe another Saudi team that comes in, decides to put in a serious bid? I think Thieves, I doubt they're going to make changes, certainly at this point. I mean, they've literally just won the last 2 events. They might well win champs. They're very likely to be in the finals. So, you know, I don't think they're going to do anything. FaZe could well make a change if the situation is right. You know, would they team with Drazah again for a 3rd year in a row? Very possibly that they could, but I would say that there's other possibilities even outside of that, depending on what happens in the broader context of the league. Like if Ravens and Boston, I don't know, get sold and some big serious teams come in with some serious paychecks, you know, I wouldn't say anything's totally off the table. So, you know, interesting. I think OpTic as well, far from guaranteed to stick it out, although they will largely, likely anyway, keep a significant part of their core of their roster. But again, similar situations could unfold there as they would with FaZe. And like, if you don't win either champs or the World Cup, then, you know, changes potentially would be made. If you go a whole season without winning, for any organization that's trying to be the best, that is a difficult situation to find yourselves in. Now, Miami are maybe the other one that are more likely to stick, actually, compared to, even I would say Miami compared to FaZe or compared to OpTic feel a bit more likely to stick, because can they get better than their current roster? I'd say that there's only one way that they can really look, and that is possibly to Snoopy, because, you know, okay, Mexican, but he's not Spaniard, but he speaks Spanish, of course. And Snoopy's been excellent this year, one of the most improved players of the season. I think if you are Miami and you're considering, okay, we need a Spanish-speaking player, and it's impossible to get any better from their own region because they've finally got the best quartet that they possibly can, you know, I don't think they're bringing Lucky back. I don't think they're bringing Vickle or Journey or Eric Boom or some of the others back either. It's likely they're going to stick with what they currently have. Super and Rencor certainly aren't going anywhere at all. Real shouldn't be either. And then, okay, Metals is a bit inconsistent, but still been pretty good. But I would say if Boston do blow it up, you know, they should potentially be having a word with Snoopy, right? Because if you were to bring Snoopy in there, you know, that's possibly the only way that Miami can think, okay, maybe we can even upgrade even further in terms of talent, and then just see how it goes. So that's a possibility. Vancouver, I think it's actually very doubtful they stick it out. They do have a solid core, but you know, I think 04's been a bit underwhelming lately. Obviously, we know that Nastie and Abuzah have been generally very good, but Nastie had a pretty difficult stage most recently, and they did come top 12. So, you know, I think that we're not going to see a boring off-season. We often talk about this going into the off-season to think, well, you know, we could not, you know, potentially not many changes actually happen. But I think for a few different reasons here, there is reason to believe that we will see probably some of the big-name heavy hitters move around a bit. The Thieves, it's difficult to imagine, right? Because, you know, they're under contract. Nadeshot's taken a pay cut to make it happen, especially if they win one of the final 2 events as well, especially the World Championship. You know, they're not going to want to leave and play with anybody else. They've only been together 1 year. They've got the potential to keep going with that success going forwards. Even if another all comes along with a big paycheck, it's difficult to say that they're going to change their mind. Whereas for FaZe, you know, second the last 2 events, momentum not maybe quite moving in the right direction. I think it's not impossible, depending on some of the economic factors. And maybe that's true for OpTic as well. But, you know, very much intrigued to your perspective in the comment section below. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.